Hello, I'm Bruce DePoy. Coming up today on News Talk, why wealthy people have an advantage when it comes to America's system of justice. We've seen it countless times. Those who can hire the best attorneys often get the best outcome. We'll talk about efforts to help bridge the gap. A free legal clinic run by UDC. Law School Dean SHELLEY BRODERICK here to tell us all about it. Then, is Matt Williams part of the problem? The Nationals have been an underachieving team all season. Injuries the main reason why, but some fans think a new skipper would help. We'll talk with WTOP's Noah Frank.
From News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DePoy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's great to have you with us today. Who you are and how deep your pockets are matters when it comes to America's system of justice. The well-to-do, those with money, are routinely able to improve their chances of success in the courtroom by hiring the best legal counsel they can find. For people of more modest means, the possibility of legal action can be downright terrifying. SHELLEY BRODERICK is Dean of the David A. Clark School of Law at the University of the District of Columbia. She joins us today. Good to see you. Thanks very much for coming in.
Hi, Bruce. I'm delighted to be here.
Having been in and around the law for a long time, talk about your observations and your experiences when it comes to means, money. What role does it play in our system?
Well, it plays a huge role. One of the biggest problems that we see is that poor people just don't have access to justice at all. There is no right to counsel in civil cases. If you're going to lose your children, you don't have a right to counsel. You don't have anybody to speak for you who understands the nuances of the law and the kinds of things that wealthy people have counsel to do for them. It's a huge problem. I'll give you another example. In landlord-tenant situations, a study done by the Access to Justice Commission in 2007 showed that 98% of people who had legal counsel won their housing cases because the tenant law is actually very positive for tenants. Those who don't almost never win. What does that tell you? It doesn't make any sense. We have to change that system, and UDC is about the business of doing that.
And we're going to talk about some very concrete things that you all are doing on the ground to help individuals get their day in court. When you quote that number, 98%, it so underscores the importance of advocacy, of an advocate, someone with a sense of how the law and the courtroom should work generally, and if you're at all lucky, the particulars of the area where you're having some sort of legal dispute or concern.
It just makes a difference. It really does. There are some spectacular lawyers here in D.C. for people in poverty. Just some of the best legal minds I've ever seen, because that's something some people care very deeply about, you know, those who don't care about making a big paycheck. Having said that, there are nowhere nearly enough, and so we're about the business of training people while they're in law school to actually learn how to be passionate and competent and outstanding advocates for their clients.
When you're facing a criminal matter, and you've talked about the civil realm, and I want to follow up on that actually in a moment, but when you're talking about the criminal realm, we've seen locally and nationally people get in hot water, and when they're able to hire the big guns, the people who were perceived to be top of the class, as it were, in their trade, in their craft, it doesn't mean they win, but it means their odds of success are about as good as they could hope for going in.
That's right. I do want to say that the District of Columbia's Public Defender Service is one of the very best, if not the best, I think it's the best in the country, and so if you have no money and you get lucky enough to get a public defender, you have a good chance of an excellent outcome. Or, you're right, you know, people charged with crimes don't tend to win. You know, that's usually there's a lot of evidence.
But with the right attorney, they can mitigate things or whatever. I mean, sometimes sometimes the whole trial is about the sentencing part. If you know that the odds of escaping the accusation are slim, so position yourself for the second phase, the punishment phase, if you will.
Well, I would say in cutting a deal, having a great lawyer working on your behalf and getting you the best plea deal is huge. And then, of course, the sentencing piece is also huge. When you can make your case for why this might have happened and why you're not going to continue to be any danger, is enormously important in what the sentencing result will be. It can mean you walk or get a country club prison or, you know, any number of better results than those who are on their own.
Talk about what you have coming up on the 19th, how you are sort of boots on the ground trying to help bridge this gap that we've been discussing.
So yesterday was the first day of classes for UDC Law School. We bring our first-year students in 2 weeks early, and they take a course called Law and Justice. We want them to know at our law school there's an end game. This legal education you get ends with you going out and helping people with access to justice. And the way we frame that for our students is the last day of their orientation, we bring in a lot of our alums and other lawyers in poverty law organizations, neighborhood legal services, legal counsel for the elderly, children's law clinic, and so forth. And our students meet with them and sign up, and they do 40 hours of community service in their very first year of law school. Many of our students do far more than that, and that's how they get the very first introduction to what it means to represent poor people.
What is that? Can you talk about some of the types of cases that your students do?
Absolutely. They may work on eviction defenses. They may work on civil liberties issues with the ACLU. They may work at the Public Defender Service. They may work on behalf of children with special education needs. They may go to the Children's Law Center, work for seniors. It's a huge, wide range.
I know legal matters can get complicated very quickly. Are you okay with us opening up the phone lines now and we can do a kind of mini legal counsel here? So if you have a general, and you know we don't have time, of course, to get into complicated matters, but if you have a legal question, we've got a great expert here in terms of her knowledge of the law and in terms of her long-standing desire to help people. So take advantage of this opportunity as we continue to talk with SHELLEY Broderick, Dean of the David A. Clark School of Law at the University of the District of Columbia. Phone lines open for those of you watching in the 10 o'clock hour. Number posted to the bottom of the screen, 703-387-1020. We'll take calls in the order they come in. So please dial right now. I'd love to connect you with Dean Broderick in the moments that follow. Again, 703-387-1020 is the number here. This is a tangent, but I want to do it anyway. Remind people who may have moved to the city or the region recently who David A. Clark was and why you've honored him by naming the law school after someone who served this city in a strong and sort of iconic way.
I'd love to answer that question. David A. Clark was a 6'5", dorky white man who went to Howard Law School and did civil rights work throughout his law school career, and then became a passionate advocate for justice, representing people in poverty and low-income people in the District of Columbia courts. He cared very deeply about rent control and other issues involving poor people, and he ran for the city council and ultimately was the chair of the city council for some 16 years. And he was passionate about making sure that his constituents got the help they need. And so he referred cases, difficult, troubling, complex cases, to our law school, and fell in love with the fact that our faculty and students just worked tirelessly on every case. And so when it came time to think about adding to the University of the District of Columbia a fully accredited ABA law school, he thought, let's do this. So he's the real reason we got this done and why we're the public law school for the District of Columbia. He
was a dorky bike rider in the district before that was cool, right?
Way before. He was a wonderful character, and he ultimately ran for mayor and lost at one point, and came and taught at the law school and was the founder with Bob Bergdorf of our legislation clinic. So another thing our students do is work in the D.C. Council offices on progressive legislation, thanks to Dave.
So most people are familiar with the public defender idea, the service. The notion that if you can't, I mean, it's as old as any. You know, if you watch TV growing up, you heard the phrase in some sort of crime drama: if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. That's in the criminal realm. You can find yourself in a very, very important civil matter on your own if you don't have bucks.
It goes on and on. Even in criminal matters, many of them, unless you are going to lose your liberty, you don't get counsel. And sometimes the ramifications for criminal cases are civil, so that you can lose property, you can be deported, you know, huge, huge issues. We're about to celebrate, and I hope to talk to you further about it next year, the 50th anniversary of the Gideon case, which brought us the right to counsel in criminal cases. Now, many of us are working on the front lines trying to bring about a civil Gideon, because we need poor people to have that access to justice in this huge array of civil cases. Again, if you're going to lose your housing and you have no lawyer, if you're going to lose your kids, your property, and you have no lawyer, no one to help you negotiate a very complicated and difficult system, you're not going to fare well. And that's not right. It shouldn't be about money.
And undoubtedly, there are people listening to us now who have or have had situations like that where they were facing something big, didn't have the ability to tap someone with courtroom and other knowledge, and they just didn't know where to turn.
That's exactly right.
They were desperate, but who do you call? Who's the 411 for a legal emergency?
That's exactly right. And so one of the things, there's a wonderful organization called the Consortium of Legal Services Providers. 5 of us started it in 1989. And part of our mission is to make sure that people in the District of Columbia know what their legal rights are and where to go to get help. So if you're a senior, you can go to legal counsel for the elderly. But how do you find that out? People who are savvy enough to call the DC Bar can be referred. A lot of people know about the public school, and they call the University of the District of Columbia, where we can either help them or refer them to someone who can help them.
Having that bit of knowledge, that one crucial piece, the ability to make that call can make really the ultimate difference. That is not an overstatement.
It's absolutely true.
Talking with Shelley Broderick, Dean of the David A. Clark School of Law at the University of the District of Columbia. We'll take a break here. Back, though, with more News Talk right after this.